about taking into account Nelson's comment about how some things are ephemeral, and if we put in effort to try to do something to help out within 3 months, what if at the end of that 3 months, then this like GitHub organization and repository that lists links that are broken, we decide that we in fact don't want to even keep that up. So I would suggest that our first task that you want to try to do within 3 months be just contributing to something that already exists, which is something that you talked about already earlier. And so I'm just putting in a plug for changing the like maybe order of priorities to be contributing to something that already exists rather than starting something even more new.
Or if you can let me add on quickly here, either that or anything which you are going to link to, just make sure that it has an archive.org link. So archive it yourself and put the link in there.
I think there's sort of two themes going on here. The one is Nelson's very serious concern. What can we do about that in 3 months? And then the other is more Kelly's concern with, well, if you've only got 3 months, what should we focus on? And it takes a long time for a website to gain traction, to gain links. And that's one of the big reasons for improving existing resources. There's no reason why both shouldn't be put forward, so to speak, shouldn't go forward at the same time. Regarding the durability of GitHub, I think Git will be here for a very long time because it's the version control system that's used for developing Linux, and Linux will be here for a long time. I think GitHub will be here for a very long time because Microsoft took it over, and Microsoft, whether you like it or not, will be here for a while. And it's, so to speak, too valuable a commercial property to let it disappear. I think it's probably wise to have some sort of protection strategy against GitHub being inaccessible, if you like. But for the moment, if we're talking about, I mean, it's been here for about 10 or 15 years already. So I think that we can give it another 3 years without worrying too much. So it's a sort of 3 years from now, we should have some better ideas, perhaps. But in terms of, okay, so something that happened with the, there's the FAQ, Tech FAQ, and that provided standard URLs for frequently asked questions. Now, in those days, it tried to be one document that, so to speak, covered everything, and it got to be really big. And I think it's also somewhat orphaned. But determining the popular questions and, so to speak, curating answers. So curating answers to popular questions might be something that you can work on and make a difference in 3 months. So what do I do in relationship to this error? How do I fix a missing brace? Those sorts of things. Don't try and answer the questions, just find the websites that give the best answers and link to them. So link to the best answers. And I think that's something that Stack Exchange does, Tech.Stack Exchange does. You know, people come in with questions. So participating in Tech.Stack Exchange is one of the ways you can make a difference in three months. If it's doing the sort of, if you're that sort of person, it's that sort of question. I'm thinking of Kelly being an R user. And the great thing about R users is that they're all R users. And so you have this commonality of experience. And somehow help for our users, to some degree, must express that in the same way that LaTeX for logicians expresses the commonality there. So I think one of the areas where you could make a difference in 3 months is in specialized communities. And if there's already a small community of you, when I say small, few thousand, using LaTeX for some specific purpose, and you're part of that community, I think it makes sense to sort of put some effort into that. And if you're a publisher, publishers, so to speak, are the, I'll use the word mother hens of a community of authors. And they need to provide some sort of LaTeX help, really some of them. So improving the LaTeX help on the Journal of Integer Sequences, for example, might be a good spot to go to. So journal publishers, particularly small ones, what's the word? Non-commercial, small non-commercial. So Journal of Integer Sequences is the one that comes to my mind because I do a lot with integer sequences. I'm sure that there's probably about 50 journals like that. You can make a list of small journals. So I think in 3 months, a group of people larger than we are, having more time than we are, could make a list of non-commercial journals, have a look at their LaTeX help, and see if that help couldn't be provided better or improved. So a list of special journals. I mean, it may be that the LaTeX help is all perfectly satisfactory and we don't need to do anything at all. And that nobody ever really has a serious problem with LaTeX because they can always ask it Stack Exchange and they're always getting the answer they need. But I feel that's probably a bit optimistic. And it might be a bit too optimistic, particularly for people who are complete beginners who might be intimidated by TeXtbox Stack Exchange. And
does anyone know what the major group of people is who use LaTeX? I would sort of assume without much evidence that it's people who write journal articles and so on.
I don't think we've done a survey. Okay, now we've got something we can do in 3 months. A survey of LaTeX users.
And the reason I mention that is because if that's true, then most beginners are learning it from people in their field who've much more experienced. You know, there's probably not very many people who sort of come across it and said, oh, well, I'm interested in writing my autobiography, I'll do it in LaTeX. They probably come to it because they're writing for a journal which, you know, accepts submissions in LaTeX or whatever, or writing a thesis and other students have done it in LaTeX. The university provides some style files and so on. So the question is whether there's a significant number of beginners who are isolated.
Well, I think empowering people, that's what help is about in some sense. The best help is about empowering people. So how do we empower people who are learning LaTeX? I think Stack Exchange is really very, very well designed from a social point of view. From a social point of view, it really works very, very well. And the chap that is behind it, Joel Sponsky, I think his name. I've read some of his books on computer programming, and he's got a very refreshing, very practical point of view on things. And he's also got quite a sense for what works and what doesn't, so to speak, in the marketplace. Stack Exchange has certainly sort of sewn up that sort of question and answer area in all sorts of places. So from a, roughly speaking, commercial point of view, it's very satisfactory. And I don't think competing with Stack Exchange is a way of helping LaTeX users. I think perhaps the thing to do is to, I'll finish shortly, the thing to do is to have contact with LaTeX users and observe what their problems are. So learn from LaTeX users before you try to help them, as part of helping them. And in the old days, when you go to a class to learn LaTeX, I've done a few myself. You actually learn, as a teacher, you actually learn a lot from giving that class. And I've also been to classes for teaching Django, and that works the same way. I stopped now. Somebody was saying something. Was it Tate?
Yeah, that's me. So someone was talking about the fact that most tech and LaTeX users are not isolates. They're already in a university environment where papers are being written in LaTeX and their teachers are using it and other students are using it, etc.